Hi, everybody.
Hey, Bill.
I've prepared a few short remarks for the day. Don't worry, that's just a prop. I'm going to get to that in just a second. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the organizers today who've done such an incredible job. They've been working on this for 6 months, so a big round of applause for the organizers. And also, let's have a really big round of applause for the policemen that are out here keeping us safe today. They do a lousy job 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they never get any credit. We're just really glad you guys are out here today. Now, before I get started, I'd like to ask a question of the crowd. If you are a veteran who has served in the United States military, would you raise your hand, please? This is for you. I am standing up here today, and you people are in the audience today because of the sacrifice of these men who have served overseas in miserable conditions to make sure that Americans like you and me can say what's on our mind without the slightest bit of worry. Our freedom is protected by those men, and is protected by the men who are across Wilshire Boulevard lying in that cemetery over there. And we never forget those men and women. Never. Thank you for your service. We are deeply grateful. Now, I said I'd bring out a prop. This is about 600 pages of the health care bill. The actual health care bill is about 1,000 pages, but I couldn't bring all of it because I couldn't get anybody to help me carry it out of my car. I'd like to read to you a little paragraph from the health care bill that's up for consideration. And you might want to get out the hankies, Patriots, because this is extremely moving stuff. Ready? Subsection B of Section 38 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 relating to general business credit is amended by striking plus at the end of paragraph 34, by striking the period at the end of paragraph 35, and inserting 2 plus, and also by inserting after paragraph 35 the following new paragraph 36, the class automatic enrollment and premium withholding credit determined under Section 40RA. Powerful stuff, isn't it? You know, our Congress is voting on bills like this that they admit that they have not read because these bills are unreadable. They're unreadable, they're unintelligible, nobody can understand these bills. So let me ask you a question. If an airline pilot crashes an airplane because he didn't read his flight plan to get the weather at the destination, what would happen to that guy? Yeah, if a doctor prescribes medication for a patient that immediately puts that patient into shock and kills him because he didn't bother to read that patient's chart, what would happen to that guy? That's right, and if an attorney let a client of his go to the electric chair because he didn't bother to read the evidence that was ready for him in defense, what do you think would happen to that attorney? They wouldn't just be fired, they'd be in jail. If the United States Congress is passing laws that they have not read, that is a dereliction of duty and it's a violation of their oath, and we shouldn't have to stand for it. There's something really interesting today. I talked to you about this gigantic thing. Stand back, ladies and gentlemen. You feel that? The seismometers in Pasadena are going to record that one. That's the health care bill. It's about 1,000 pages. Anybody know what this is? It's not just the Constitution. This is the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Look at the size of this thing. Look at this. See that? That's it. That's all. That's all there is. This is simple. Complex is easy, simple is hard. And I want to tell you a story that many of you probably don't know about. And I want to tell you about a man named Grosvenor Morris. I bet you most of you don't know that name, but you should know that name. He's a very important American. Grosvenor Morris served on the Constitutional Convention back in 1787, and Grosvenor Morris was on the Committee for Style. Grosvenor Morris and the Committee for Style and the Constitutional Convention had one job only. Their job was to take complex legal instructions and reduce it to something simple that everybody could understand, because the founders knew that the Constitution of the United States was not for lawyers and politicians. It was for the people of the United States, and if the people couldn't understand it, then it was worthless. So that's how we end up with something like this instead of something like that, because of the Committee of Style and a guy named Grosvenor Morris. Now, there's a happy coincidence in all of this. The first time that the Constitutional Convention met to read the actual words of the Constitution as they would be written was in 1787. You know what the date was? September 12th, 1787. 9/12 of 1787. The Constitutional Convention met to hear the words of the Constitution as they would be written. Grosvenor Morris wrote a paragraph that I'd like to read to you, and if you recognize this paragraph written by Grosvenor Morris, feel free to read along with me. Grosvenor Morris wrote in 1787, quote, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America." That's very easy to understand. Nothing like this monstrosity that they're trying to ram down our throats. I think that's the most important paragraph that's ever been written in human history. Here's another paragraph from the Constitution that many of you may find interesting. It says, quote, "Amendment 10. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." Or to the people. I've read this document several times. I know many of you have too, and I'll tell you what, I look through here and nowhere in here do I see the power authorizing the President of the United States to fire the head of a private corporation. It's not in here. It's not in here. I've looked. Nowhere in here is the authorization for either the Congress or the President to tell you to buy something that you don't want to buy, like they want to do with this health care bill. It's just not in here. Okay? If health care is a right, then we are in serious trouble, and I'll tell you why. The founders, when they wrote the Constitution, understood that a right is something that does not impose an obligation on anybody else. A right is something that is given to you by God and nature. You're born with it, and the Bill of Rights was determined to tell that the government cannot take these away from you. If healthcare is a right, then there's no limit to what are rights. Healthcare is a commodity. Rights do not impose a burden on other citizens. If healthcare is a right, then why isn't housing a right? Why isn't food a right? You can go longer without food and longer without healthcare than you can without food and housing. If commodities become rights, it never stops. A big screen TV will be a right. A college education will be a right. A jet ski will be a right. And you can't stop it. And the people who are going to do that are enslaved to the people who produce those commodities. So let me just close by saying this. Everybody knows that the answer to the problems we have in Washington are to get out there and vote, but that's really only a small part of the problem. The real answer to the problems in Washington are not getting out there to vote. The real problems are going out there to run. You people out here are the people that need to run for public office, and I will tell you this. There are a couple sayings you need to remember. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. The entire country is waiting for common citizens to go to Washington, do a tour of duty like jury duty, and come back home in glory. You will get a lot of support. You need to run for office. And I'll tell you one last thing. You will know that adults have returned to Washington when a politician stands in front of you and says, folks, we're in real trouble. We have spent all of our money, we've spent all of your children's money, and we've spent all of our grandchildren's money. That's the facts. What are we going to do about it? Well, instead of going to Harvard MBAs who make things like these collateralized debt obligations that got us into all this trouble, what would you do? What would you common citizens do if your family was facing that kind of horrendous debt? You would do three things. First thing you would do is you would maximize your revenues, right? You'd make as much money as you possibly could. That's called the Laffer curve. You lower taxes until you get to the point of maximum revenue and you hold it there. Number two, you would cut your expenses. Cut it to the bone. That means freeze the federal budget where it is and 5% cuts for every year until we get this down. And most importantly, you would set up a payment plan and you would stick to it. Because when your creditors see that you are serious about paying off a debt, they will start to take you seriously. And until we hear that kind of language from Washington, we are not going to get out of this mess. Nobody in Washington understands this. Only the people understand this. And I cannot urge you strongly enough to run for office because it's your country and you need to go take it back. These are my final words up here. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you one thing. We're in serious trouble. We have a lot of corruption in Washington. We have an entrenched imperial Congress for life, and they're not going to go on their own. But let me remind you of one thing. The United States of America was born by defeating the most powerful military force on the earth. We fought a civil war against the toughest fighters on planet Earth, that's other Americans. We defeated Imperial Germany, we defeated Nazi Germany, we defeated Imperial Japan, and we went and whipped the Soviet Union without firing a shot. If we can do those things, then Barack Obama and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi are actually pretty small potatoes. We just need the will to do it. Thank you for coming out today. It's great to be American. Have a great